I'm so thrilled to have Barbara here, Barbara Humpton, CEO of USA Rare Earth. And I also want to welcome our viewers on C-SPAN. I just learned that today, not only we have our C-SPAN viewers, but our C-SPAN viewers on YouTube for the first time. That now our C-SPAN is available on YouTube, just starting today. And I'd love to welcome our C-SPAN viewers on YouTube. So Barbara, I think it's been, about 62 days that you're in this job.
But who's counting?
Who's counting? And this new job at USA Rare Earth, formerly you were CEO of Siemens North America. So what is that sense of urgency that still has remained, that in these 60 days that you have accomplished, that you think you still need to get your first 100? How do you think about the set of issues that are facing you in this first 100 days?
Peter, thank you for the question, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. I got a phone call this summer asking if I would consider joining USA Rare Earth. And of course, I knew a little bit about the issue that is the center of our premise. This idea that access to rare earths and permanent magnets is of vital importance to the economy. And currently, we have a single point of failure, a very fragile supply chain, and that needs to be repaired. So I actually gave 2 weeks' notice at Siemens. And
How many years were you?
After 14 years. When I talked to my global CEO and said, I'm turning in my resignation, there was a moment, but then he said, well, where are you going? And I explained what I was about to do, and his next reaction was perfect. How can we help? So this idea that what we need to do is rapidly repair this supply chain, USA Rare Earth has set out to look at every element of the supply chain, magnets to metal making, to the oxides that are needed for metal making, to the actual raw materials that will be mined. That entire supply chain needs to be scaled.
So we're here at the Growth Summit, and critical minerals have come up in a few of our conversations today. But one of the things that, it's not as bad as AI, but there is a bit of a hype cycle around critical minerals. Everyone uses the word, and there's not a real great framework to understand which ones matter more than others. But it's also there's not great understanding of what the different companies are doing. So just for a second, can you just kind of break it down slowly in terms of what does USA Rare Earth do, and how do they think about the supply chain when you're talking about this sort of mine to magnets is so important, and how that fits into this larger issue of a supply chain that is really fragile in relationship to China?
Well, I'm just going to say 3 words: secure, reshore, and grow. It turns out that the know-how for the work along the supply chain outside of China is actually pretty thin. It's been 30 years since China first declared their interest in dominating the supply chain. And since then, the people who have thrived and survived outside of China are the grittiest people on earth. So, but many of them are reaching retirement age now. So what USA Rare Earth is doing is actually scouring the globe, looking for companies where we can make an investment, where we can tie them into this integrated supply chain. And a lot of people ask me, oh, does that mean you're verticalizing? Does that mean you're focused on what it takes to produce your magnets? I'll say yes, and horizontally scaling at each link in the chain, serving others in the supply chain. There are other magnet makers. There is a small number of metal makers. There are a few processors. There are mines all around the world. And our job is to look across that value chain and determine if there are weak links where an investment and ownership by a US-based company is going to allow that business to thrive and grow. We want to bring them into the fold.
So let's dive a little deeper, because I want you to be able to explain that supply chain in relationship to sort of your US interest here. Walk us through Round Top, Stillwater, and what the differences are from the ore all the way to the processing. Would be great to explain that.
This may be the most exciting part of our story in this moment. There are some developments happening even as we speak. There's a very rich deposit of heavy rare earths. in Round Top Mountain in Texas. It's on state lands, it's outside of El Paso, and USA Rare Earth has the lease, the mining rights for that deposit. Question is, why hasn't anyone actually turned this into a mine? And the answer is very simple. You couldn't afford to do it over these last 3 decades. We had very inexpensive goods coming, and who was willing to pay the price to actually go and extract these heavy rare earths out of rock in Texas? Well, it turns out that with a couple of changes in process, with a little bit of advanced thinking about how we might sequence things, the team we've just announced that we've moved into the preliminary feasibility study. For those who know mining, these are the early stages of being able to convert that deposit into a mine. Why do heavy rare earths matter? Because if you look at the bottom of the periodic table, here are these 17 elements. We call some of them light, we call some of them heavy. The heavy rare earths are absolutely essential to high performance metals and magnets that are used in aerospace, medicine, in electronics, et cetera. Without them, nothing moves.
But I love this that they brought up the periodic table. One of the things I remember you and I have talked about this, that maybe we should really collaborate on this, is that because there's not a great framework of understanding or a great visual, maybe we need to revisit the periodic table and create a patriotic periodic table so that we understand that the ones that are really critical in how we compete in the globe. But one of those pieces in that supply chain that in even the 62 days, you've closed your first acquisition. So let's talk to us about that acquisition and why it matters.
Well, and this is why I gave Siemens 2-week notice. We wanted to time my arrival at USA Rare Earth with the acquisition of Less Common Metals. Less Common Metals, I mean, the name says it all. They're one of only a couple of providers outside of China, and the only metal maker working with samarium and samarium cobalt. For those in the aerospace industry, you would know how critical that is. Less Common Metals is craftspeople in Cheshire, England, who have been pursuing their craft, doing this for quite some time, have not had the wherewithal to invest. Their owners had said, it's not really worth it in our portfolio of things to invest and grow this business. We spotted them and said, wait a minute, this is the linchpin in the whole chain, ultimately leading to magnets. How do you make magnets? With metals that have been formed into strip cast. Term of the supply chain. That strip cast that gets produced gets put into into the permanent magnet makers everywhere around the world. So Less Common Metals now gives us the ability to work across the entire network, supporting other magnet makers. And because they've spent all these many years searching for the sources of minerals outside of China, they know that upstream supply chain very, very well. So I feel like on the day I arrived, I was introduced into a ready-made network, and now we're just moving as fast as we can to make sure that we tap into that network, strengthen the supply chain, and grow.
I would imagine that was taking place before you arrived, and that by hiring you, that getting that deal across the line is important, but also hiring you because of your great track record, but also your relationship to government. We're seeing a lot of ideas about what's the role of federal government at this particular moment. We were at a lunch recently that some ideas were thrown out around the Wolfram crisis in World War II that caused the U.S. to create a stockpile of tungsten. We've seen yesterday Vulcan got $700 million through the Pentagon loan program. And what do you think about these types of initiatives? How does it fit into your own matrix? And are you going to do a deal like this?
I won't comment on that, but what I will comment on is the work that the federal government is doing right now is vitally important. I mean, how do we switch the equation around so that we don't fall smack dab back into the same box canyon that we find ourselves in? What's happened through the years is the public has figured out that, hey, China is using some element here, permanent magnets, for leverage, but it's cheap. So we're gonna buy that. How do we compete against non-market behaviors? That's the question. So what I am thrilled about is the Trump administration has pulled together experts. And in my interactions with the government, what I'm finding is experts in mining, experts in the mineralogy, the metallurgy, the chemistry, experts all the way up through the magnet production who are then capable of looking across the supply chain, seeing how various private sector actors are pursuing their objectives. And really, the only question I have for the US government is how can we help? So I think the best way to get good ideas is to get lots of ideas and throw the bad ones out. And so any of these comments, like, whether we need stockpiles, whether we need pricing support, whether we need permitting support, I think what I've found in the US government is a willingness to use any available lever to solve this critical economic and therefore national security problem.
I know they say there's no bad ideas in our brainstorm, but come on. We've been in some brainstorms.
Oh, I've had some bad ones.
Some bad ideas. We put those in the parking lot. But the aspect here of thinking through those ideas and this moment, one of the things that we've talked about is that whether it's policymakers or even the way media covers it, is not understanding some of the interdependencies here. As we think about what incentives might, we had Grover Norquist resurface an idea that he threw out at our upNEXT event about perhaps creating a tax incentive to companies around how they store critical minerals. But then there's a question that I'd love for you to talk about. Well, then what do we do about the refining? What do we do about these other pieces? And what do we do about getting taxed on metals that are going through, that you're getting taxed on right now? Can you just talk us through some of those interdependencies?
Yeah. I mean, here's the magic thing about our free enterprise system is that innovative people find ways to understand what are the rules today, and then how can I best deliver inside this framework of rules. And anytime we make changes to the rules, it means it disrupts some things. So there's crazy stuff going on. My favorite is the team called me and said, we've got tariffs on the steel that we're making at Less Common Metals. It turns into strip cast, but it's in a form of steel. How do you code it in the system? You code it as steel, and it's coming in and it's getting tariffed. Well, yes, of course it is, but wow, do you think the federal government understands that this is the very material we need in order to make the magnets? This is the kind of dialogue we'll have because we know that it's not anyone's intent to slow us down. And so I think it's the job of all of the players, public, private sector, academia, to be at the table, being open about what is it we're trying to achieve, and then what are the unintended consequences as we take action and drive change.
I know you're a student of history. One of the frameworks that I've been trying to think through about this moment, it's clear that you had a calling into this role. Almost, my frame of industrial patriotism, and say it is a calling that you've had to take this job. In this moment, do we think of this as a gold rush opportunity? Do we think of it as a Manhattan Project opportunity? What is kind of historical precedent do you use as a framework to think about these issues?
Well, Peter, you and I had a conversation before your upNEXT event, and we talked about the railroads. Right. Think about the tremendous investment that was required in order to build those railroads, but then think about the economic growth that resulted from that investment. That's where we are right now with the building out of the rare earth supply chain outside of China. This is an opportunity for us to drive economic development in a very big way in places that haven't seen an opportunity like this in quite some time. So I'm excited about that. There's one other aspect of this. I think we've all learned the lesson that those who make innovate. And just the sheer practice of, we know that we had given that away. We thought that's the best way to get cheap goods that are going to drive our other economic objectives. But what we lose in that deal is just the hands-on experience. So I think we're sitting at the front end of something that's a little bit like that golden spike connecting the railroads, and at the same time, the innovation that then sparked generations of economic development.
And so let's put a little finer point of that, because as you talk about Stillwater and these other regions in our country that maybe haven't seen these types of investment, we talked about the federal government. Talk to me a little bit about what's happening at a state level, and sort of, are you getting, is it not only just doing job growth, are you getting sort of the right stakeholders around to understand their piece? And I take this from the rail, when the rail industry first got regulated, it was at the state level, and they made a lot of rules around that before Congress stepped in. So tell us a little bit more about what's happening at the state level.
Yeah. From Texas to Oklahoma to Colorado, where we have processing experts. Fantastic interaction there. And Peter, I'll tell you one other thing, internationally as well. That little metal maker in the UK already had plans underway to expand operations in the UK and then also to expand into France. And the French government is stepping forward. They've been almost as active as the US government in recognizing both the challenge and the opportunity here. And one of the big things that all of these stakeholders, whether I'm in Stillwater, Oklahoma, or whether I'm in Cheshire in the UK, the big question is, what about the workforce?
Yeah. So talk to us about that. So I remember, you talk about sort of the age of physical AI. We talk about sort of apprenticeships programs that exist out there. As much as government can stimulate or partner around permitting or incentivize this type of investments in these town, we need a skilled labor force, workforce to do that. What are you doing on that front? How are you thinking through the skills side of the equation?
Yeah, I'll start with metal making again because this may be the weakest link in the chain today. You have 30 people in Cheshire who know this craft. The plan is bring in, call it 6 additional people at a time. Bring them in and put them through a mini apprenticeship program. And then have those 6 come with an expert from Cheshire to Stillwater or to the south of France, where we're looking to establish another hub. The idea of establishing an apprenticeship program, very much like the things you would see in our German colleagues' at workforce development programs. I think it's a great way to go. Hands-on, experiential, combining then academic programs that support. Ultimately, I believe that we will see the community college system play a big role in the United States. I was just at a meeting of the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond this morning. I met one of our new board members who is with the Food Bank program right here in Washington, D.C. And what she's urging is that we think about combining our public service, our philanthropy that reaches out to provide people basic services with job training programs. And maybe our community colleges will end up being one of those places that bring together hey, look, if we as a community are going to take care of each other, we're also building toward the jobs that we know need to be filled.
That's amazing. So I'm going to try this. We haven't done a lot of Q&A, but we have such a great audience.
We do have a great audience. Hey, friends.
And Barbara obviously is so approachable and knowledgeable with this. Any questions from the audience?
And while we're getting microphones around, can I just say, Sam Feist, you rock. I'm so glad to be on the first day of C-SPAN on YouTube.
There you go. Yeah, we get a round of applause for that. All right. Well, I'm happy to dominate here. So one of the things that
wait, there's a question right
Richard,
here in the
please.
front row.
Here's, take the microphone, Richard.
So, Barbara, spectacular as you are, when will this critical minerals problem be completely solved?
We will be chipping away at this for a long time to come, but we've got a darn good start right now. The thing I've challenged our team to look at is, hey, you've got a plan between now and 2030. What would it take to accomplish all those objectives by 2028? Sometimes all you need is a really good impossible challenge, right? Wait, they said it can't be done, but wait, I'll find a way. I'm telling you, the miners, the processors, the metal makers, it's all hands on deck.
It's pretty much 2028 already, so
We're
that's
there.
a fabulous goal to have.
Yeah.
Are you going to run for office? No, I'm just joking. One of the things that let's end on a note where we have a lot of policymakers in this room, business leaders. We have our viewers from C-SPAN. If there was like one concept, one thing that you would want them to know about this issue that maybe is not understood or maybe not appreciated, what would it be?
Well, Peter, I would ask everyone to think about this concept, globalization.
Say that again so we can break that down a little bit.
Globalization. I mean, we are living in a world where there's global innovation going on. We can share ideas at the speed of light, no question about it. but what if we can localize more of the real world production? I believe that when we do that, we're going to find we are growing the economy, we're growing our security, we're taking geopolitical game pieces off the board.
That's wonderful. And we're at time. Barbara, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Peter.
Thank you, everybody.